Hello, thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. I am David Pendergrass. Recently, there have been a couple big names. Joshua Harris, who wrote the book I Kissed Dating Goodbye back, I don't know, was that the 90s? And I always thought that was a dumb thesis, quite frankly. I think Christian dating is a very healthy thing when done well. If you want to do dating and you're a Christian, read the book Boundaries and Dating. Boundaries and Dating by Cloud and Townsend are one of them, but Boundaries and Dating. And anyway, I think always thought that was a silly idea. But nevertheless, apparently he's left his Christianity, left the faith. Another guy from a church called Hillsong, Australian. And most people don't know Hillsong's sermons that much, but they certainly know Hillsong's music, because if you don't know this already, in church life, Hillsong is one of the go-to musical groups, praise bands that writes tunes, and it goes all over the world. So this is, I would dare say Hillsong is by far the most influential Christian praise band, worship band group in the world. I sure think so. Well, a guy, I don't know that much about him. I know some of their songs. I don't know the individual people in it. I just can recognize some voices here and there on the songs on the radio or whatnot. Well, one guy named Marty Sampson, who's a Hillsong worship leader and songwriter, Marty Sampson, he's written or co-written tons of songs, and I mean tons of them. Well, he's leaving the faith or left the faith as well. And Marty wrote some stuff. I'll call Marty. I don't know the guy. He might be a fantastic. I'm serious. So none of I'm about to say here is against him. He might be a really nice guy, and I like his voice actually. And so I mean his singing voice, and I'm pretty picky myself. So that's kind of cool. And but he posted on Instagram. I saw something not too long ago, and then in response to what I really saw first was a response to this, and I guess I'll start in that order. A guy named lead singer for a Christian hard rock group called Skillet. He wrote a response to people leaving the faith, and I thought it was very good. And he's talking about people who want to leave, and they're very advocates for Jesus. They're very bold and whatever, and then they leave the faith, and then all of a sudden now they're bold for their leaving the faith. It's kind of he said several other things, and he didn't single out anyone in particular, but he was more generic. But his point was that it's gone crazy. What's going on? These people leaving the faith. Well, the original post from Marty says this. This is from, well, he did a post on Instagram, and then he did in a Relevant, which is a different source. He kind of edited it. But this is what he said, and I'm always interested. I'm sad. It's not like gossip interested, like, wow, let's find out all the gossip, the dark. It's more, I'm interested from my perspective, being a Christian and having dealt with a lot of skeptics and atheists. And if you know my story at all, I had twice intellectually, you might say, I left the faith. So I am genuinely always interested to hear what it is that caused a person to get to the place where they say, I'm no longer a Christian. Is it a new argument? Is it because they were caught in an affair? Like, what is the issue or issues that said this is finally the reason why I've got to get out? And so I was intrigued, and I'm just quoting here from this Relevant article. This is what he says, quote, "Time for some real talk. I'm genuinely losing my faith, and it doesn't bother me. Like, what bothers me now is nothing. I am so happy now, so at peace with the world, it's crazy. This is a soapbox moment, so here I go. How many preachers fail? Many. No one talks about it. How many miracles happen? Not many. No one talks about it. Why is the Bible full of contradictions? No one talks about it. How can God be love yet send 4 billion people to a place all cause they don't believe? No one talks about it. Christians can be the most judgmental people on the planet. They can also be some of the most beautiful and loving people. But it's not for me. I am not in anymore. I want genuine truth, not the, quote, I just believe it kind of truth. Science keeps piercing the truth of every religion. Lots of things help people change their lives, not just one version of God. Got so much more to say, but for me, I'm keeping it real, and it's just I keeping it real. Unfollow if you want. I've never been about living my life for others. All I know is what's true to me right now, and Christianity just seems to me like another religion at this point. I could go on, but I won't. Love and forgive? Absolutely. Be kind? Absolutely. Be generous and do good to others? Absolutely. Some things are good no matter what you believe. Let the rain fall, the sun will come up tomorrow. Well, the lead singer Skillet wrote a lot. I thought a great article in response to that. You can Google it if you want. And then Marty responded to the lead singer of Skillet. And the first big chunk of it really is just saying, you don't know me. To think that I'm trying to influence others without even asking me if that is my intention is offensive. Anyway, it's basically the whole thing is saying you don't know who I am and you're judgmental. But this last paragraph I'm going to read in his response, he said, instead of people like you asking genuine questions, you jump to conclusions when you could easily ask, who is trying to influence whom? Why, when someone is influencing others, does this cause the kind of panic in a truth so strong that it cannot be shaken? I, for one, don't see this kind of shock and horror in the scientific community when a theory is usurped by a new and contradicting theory. Perhaps this is the nature of religion. Say what you will, I have no opinion on you or your life. Now, I could spend a long time going through line by line of all this stuff, and I won't. I'll go through kind of quickly, but when I first read that, I was genuinely disappointed because it just makes me sad when people... Makes me sad for them, and sad when they come to the conclusion, and I mean just genuine sadness, I guess, because I can't imagine the amount of pain he must be in, not to mention all of his friends and relatives and whomever. I mean, to go from Hillsong, I mean, it's a big, big, big deal to go from that to out. I can't imagine the amount of isolation he's probably going to feel now for people who cut him off hardcore. In America, we say cold turkey. That's got to be very difficult, or I imagine it would be. I also can't imagine the difficulty emotionally and psychologically he's going through to come to that place where he posts this. And so I have genuine empathy. Again, it helps knowing that I went through it myself. It's a very painful thing. That's my first thing, is that I'm sad for him and the loneliness he must feel. The second thing I was thinking is these are really, really horrible reasons to leave Christianity. These are really bad. These are really, really bad. I was going to say something. I was going to do a podcast on this, on his original post, and then he responded at the time of the recording of this podcast. He just posted his response to the lead singer Skillet, and he said a line in there is exactly what I was going to bring up, and I'll read it one more time. So this is in his response to the lead singer Skillet. He says, I, for one, don't see this kind of shock and horror in the scientific community when a theory is usurped by a new and contradictory theory. My response is, I agree when a person gives a new and contradictory theory. But that's precisely what Marty has not done. And I wish I could sit down with him and say, Marty, that's not what you've done at all. You have given nothing new and nothing contradictory in a theory whatsoever. I mean, not even close. Not close. These are... I mean, that's always what I'm looking for, and it never happens. It never, ever, in my experience, and my experience is limited, it never happens that they have found new evidence that Jesus wasn't raised from the dead. They found some evidence that the Gospels are all fiction. It's always from people who don't know any better, and their knowledge of biblical history or languages or theology is so elementary. I was going to say childish, but it is. It's childish. And part of it is not most people's fault, and more this guy, that's my view. My view is that part of it is not his fault. He's at a church that is a little bit I know, and I don't know it that well, but a little bit I know. It's a highly Pentecostal, charismatic, which I don't have anything against. But people who are charismatic Pentecostal tend to be a little bit anti-biblical theology and historical studies. And so in his culture, and I really mean in this culture, I can't imagine how difficult it must be to say, I have doubts about this, or can you say more about that because I don't understand, or that seems nonsense to me. In that kind of culture, oftentimes, if you're listening to this podcast, you might not have experienced this before, but I've talked to many, and for many in the world, this is a common phenomenon where they think and probably know that they would feel so ashamed. They would ostracize them or make a bad comment about their faith, or either dismiss it, like, just go and pray about it, or they might look at them shocked, like, I can't believe you would ask that question. I can't believe you would doubt. And so what happens anything, no matter what it is, whether you're a Satan worshiper or whatever, when you have doubts about something, you don't feel the safety to open up about it, it tends to make you want to leave the group. We tend to want to stay in groups where we feel safe and included. If you don't feel safe to be different and don't feel included, you want to leave the group. And that's what it seems to me, that's exactly what's happened here. He probably was in a culture where these kind of questions or issues weren't talked about. And that's, to me, that has to be the issue, because this is very important. Because 0 slightly educated people in the world of Christianity would have said what he said. Like, for example, how many preachers fall? Many. No one talks about. Now, dude, I'm all for hyperbole. I like hyperbole sometimes. But that's nonsense. It is a topic of preachers falling, and he means sinning. It is if his point is it's not talked about enough in the church, I concur with him probably. I think there ought to be more by leaders to leaders about it. I'm not sure why from the pulpit we need to talk about preachers falling to the people. I'm not sure what purpose that would serve. But no one talks about it is flat nonsense. It's just nonsense. And that's the first response. Secondly is, what conceivable difference does this make for Christianity? What conceivable tenet of Christianity falls now because preachers sin? I mean, is that a newsflash, everybody? I believe me, I know the difficulty for the average preacher and pastor in the world and minister in the world to be perfect all the time. And because they feel perfect all the time and they don't feel the safety and inclusion of their culture, they don't. Most do not. I'm telling you, they don't. They don't feel the safety to be able to say, I struggle with X. Because preachers should never they never should struggle with anything at all. And that's, of course, why they end up being addicted or they leave the group altogether. But it is talked about. There are books about this issue, and there are counselors set up for this issue. There are counselors who specifically focus just on ministers. There are support groups. There's all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so both of these things are detrimental. Well, they're devastating to what he's saying. The first is people do talk about it too. This is completely irrelevant to whether or not Jesus rose from the dead and died for my sins and existed. I mean, it's just completely irrelevant. I don't know. And this next thing is, how many miracles happen? Not many. No one talks about it. It's kind of like a broken record. The first is, that's absolute nonsense. It's nonsense. He might mean not many around me. Okay, that's his situation. Okay. But to say they don't happen many, it's just gibberish. He needs to go read the book by Craig Keener called Miracles. There are millions and millions and millions of documented miracles that happens all over the globe. To say no one talks about it, I don't know what that means. No one talks about miracles not happening maybe in his little club or in his social group. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but his culture, maybe. I don't know. But that just has nothing to do with reality, because miracles do happen. And then secondly, I would say the same thing is, what conceivable difference does that make? If not many, all you need is one. If one miracle happens, that means God exists. He says not many. So what does the frequency of miracles have anything to do with Christianity being true or false? It's a typical atheist argument. I should expect to see miracles left and right every single day. My response is, that's nonsense in Christianity. No, we should not. Miracles, by definition, are rare occurrences where God is the cause of the effect. And that doesn't happen often around the globe if you added it all up. Well, no one talks about it. I just disagree. And secondly, it's irrelevant Christianity. So it's the same two responses to the preachers falling. One is, it does happen a lot. Two, this has nothing to do with Christianity being true or false. Nothing. His third point is, why is the Bible full of contradictions? No one talks about it. There I would say is, let me grant for a second, the Bible is full of contradictions. No one talks about it. It's absolute nonsense. There are so many books and journals and blogs and videos and DVD series. I mean, there's just tons of things about supposed Bible contradictions. I mean, there's so many of them. People like Norman Geisler and others have made a living, probably, from answering all the supposed contradictions. And while I don't have a problem with certain failures in the Bible, like scientific knowledge and so forth, you are often hard-pressed to find genuine contradictions in the Bible. You can't say one gospel says there's one woman at the tomb and one woman says two or three. That's not a contradiction. It'd be a contradiction if someone said there was one and only one woman at the tomb at this time, and the other one said there were two and only two at this time of the thing. That's contradictory. You have to have information that contradicts. And in my experience, I'm trying to be cautious here, most, if not all, that I've ever seen by skeptics and atheists, they're not contradictions. Now, I don't have a theological axe to grind. I don't. Some people do. Some people have a hard time with the concept of contradiction in the Bible. I don't. What I'm saying is, even when I've looked them up, I don't find them very convincing at all. So you'd first have to demonstrate that, and to say no one talks about it, I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. I can't believe it. Maybe in his culture they don't. Maybe. I don't know. I just don't get that. The other thing is, when he says no one the second major point as usual was, what does that have to do with Christianity? Christianity could be completely 100% true and the Bible be full of contradictions. Even if you have a view of the Bible where it is straight from heaven, it is literally the words of God. That is, if you're just like a Muslim. Muslims think that about the Quran. But most Christians don't think that about the Bible. We don't think God speaks in Hebrew and Greek and Latin and Aramaic. We think that most Christians around the globe think God spoke through authors. Now, how that is meted out, exactly how that happened, Christians disagree all over the place about that. But a general belief is that in some way, God moved in the spirit and heart and mind of the authors, which means there are going to be differences. But my point is, let's assume for a second that's not the case, and it fell from heaven. Which Bible is he talking about? I'm assuming he means the Protestant Bible, because frankly, he probably didn't know the difference. He probably doesn't realize there are all kinds. There's about 5 or 6 major Bible collections or canons. I'll assume he means the Protestant one. Let's assume it is rampant, full of contradictions, and let's assume for a second you think God wrote it. It still doesn't mean Christianity is false. It has nothing to do with that. What it would mean is your Bible's contradictory. Christianity is not a religion predicated upon one foundational belief, and that is the Bible is not contradictory. There are some Christians who say that. That's nonsense. No one in the primitive church thought that. Nobody did. Jesus didn't go around saying, I've come here to start a religion, and that religion is the Bible's not contradictory. So just believe that, and you're okay. Your sins are forgiven as long as you believe that the Bible is not contradictory. So my 2 responses here one more time are: 1, the Bible is not full of contradictions. Or 2, tons of people have talked about that. And I guess I'll add a third one. The third is, it's still irrelevant. This has nothing to do with whether or not Christianity is true or not. So we're, 3 for 3 of things that, these are just so, it's unfortunate. Hey, let me take a quick break. Please listen carefully to these quick announcements. I'll be right back.
Do you know of any skeptics in your family, at work, or among your friends? Do you struggle with questions concerning the existence of God or the truth claims of Christianity? Has a skeptic ever challenged you with a difficult question concerning your faith? Then you need to buy Dr. Pendergrass's book, A Skeptic Challenges a Christian, on Amazon.com. You can get it in paperback or on Kindle or in audiobook form to listen to. A Skeptic Challenges a Christian is written unlike any other book. It's not boring and full of technical jargon. It reads like you're sitting down having a conversation. As one reviewer said, as a college student, I absolutely love this book. Dr. Pendergrass knows how to effectively answer a lot of the questions that my friends at school ask about my faith. This book is a great resource for theological debates and for my own personal growth. The arguments are clear and understandable. I would definitely recommend this book to anyone who has questions about Christianity, wants to learn how to defend their faith, or even just wants a good read. Great book. Find out why it has a perfect 5-star rating on Amazon.com. A Skeptic Challenges a Christian. Buy your copies today. Ever wonder what God wants you to do with your money? Should I give it all away or save? What did the early church do with their money? In Dr. Pendergrass's book, Give It Away, Reflections on How Christians Use Money, you'll get 4 short, powerful lessons on what to do with money based on some key texts from the New Testament. This is a wonderful guide for study and reflection. It even comes with reflection questions that are perfect for small group discussions. Give It Away, Reflections on How Christians Use Money. Buy your copies today on Amazon.com. Do you like receiving a glimpse of the kingdom for free? Would you like to support what God is doing through these resources? Then please consider donating to David Pendergrass Ministries, Inc. today at davidpendergrass.com. There, you can also sign up to receive Dr. Pendergrass's free blog on a wide range of theological, biblical, and relationship issues. That's davidpendergrass.com.
The next thing he says, if you'll remember, how can God be love yet send 4 billion people to a place, all cause they don't believe? No one talks about it. Let's assume for a second he means, of course, hell, when he means to a place. That doesn't, how can God be God of love yet send people? He could send people to paradise, to Pluto, all because they don't believe. What in the world? The assumption is he means hell, but he, I guess, refuses to use the word. No one talks about it. I can't believe this. There are, I don't know, I'm being conservative, 50 to 100 good books on hell. I mean, there's tons of them. There's just tons of them. And if you don't want to read what scholars have to say on to other scholars, you read something that scholars say, and some scholars, some not, on a popular level, then go to Amazon and get books. I think one's called 4 Views on Hell. It's 4 or 5 views on hell. And look it up and read it for yourself if you're confused. People talk about this. They've talked about it for centuries. For centuries. This is a very old idea. And there are enormous amount of resources. And if you find that problematic, okay, but no one talks about it. I mean, I can't believe this. I don't know if he's ever read a book. Has he never been to a sermon that ever talks about these things? I can't believe it. The second thing I'd say is, God be love, yet sin for people. And listen very carefully to that. It's very important, if you don't do this already, to listen to a person's assumptions when they make propositional statements. How can a God be love, yet send 4 billion people to a place? What's the assumption? That if God sends someone to hell, he can't be love. Let's say it a little more propositionally. If God is love, he will not punish anybody. Think about that for a second. Is it true? Is the proposition true? If a person is love, they do not punish. I mean, that's absolutely false gibberish. That's Gallimacious. Everybody, for a moment's reflection, knows how nonsense that is. And I've said this a billion times on my podcast, but he hasn't listened to my podcast or read books on this, but every parent knows that. I'm extremely loving to my child when I punish them for something they did that was terrible, wrong, or put themselves or someone else in danger. It's a very loving act. It is just logical nonsense to think that God can't be love and punish people. The other thing I would say is, if he doesn't like the idea of what's called exclusivism, that a person must have cognizant awareness of the death and resurrection of Jesus and confess of their sins before they go to the world to come, fine. There are other Christian views, like inclusivism. And I've got podcasts. Go listen to my podcast if you want on that. What about those who have never heard the gospel? There are all kinds of biblical and Christian responses to this. There are. So I am one that does not believe that God sends 4 billion people to hell. I think it's going to be fewer than that. And I think we have good biblical and theological reasons for thinking that. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but that's one of a few major biblical and Christian views. Because why? People do, in fact, talk about it and think about it and write books and stuff on it. The last thing I'd say about that is, what difference does that make? It doesn't make Christianity false. What does hell, a topic Jesus spoke about often, have to do with Jesus existing and dying for our sins and raising from the tomb? The answer is nothing. The answer is nothing. Nothing. God could be completely loving and Christianity be true, and he sends trillions of people to hell. Those are not contradictory statements. He might not like the concept of hell. I don't know anybody who does, quite frankly. I don't like it. Then he says, Christians can be the most judgmental people on the planet. They can also be some of the most beautiful and loving people. I don't care what they're beautiful or ugly. And they can be loving. The judgmental part. And that's why I wonder how much this has to go along with his interaction with other humans. Christians can be some of the most judgmental people on the planet. Well, on the one hand, I would say, as I've said in many podcasts, Christians are supposed to be judgmental to other Christians. It's exactly what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 6, I believe. And so we should be. But of course, if he means just hateful punks, I concur. Christians can be hateful punks, and that is not kind. It's not loving. If I met 1,000 hateful punks in my church, does that mean Christianity is false? If I met 1,000,000 hateful punk Christians, does that mean Christianity is false? If I met 1,000,000,000 judgmental, hateful pricks, you should be saying in the podcast, no, because it is irrelevant. It is irrelevant. If I meet 1,000,000,000 hateful prick mathematicians, does 2 + 2 now equal nothing? Is 2 + 2 equal 4 false because of some mean mathematicians? What conceivable difference does their meanness or judgmental attitude have to do with the truth of Christianity? His next paragraph, I'm not in anymore. I want genuine truth. And I so applaud him for that. I want genuine truth. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. I don't know what genuine truth means. There's no such thing as a false truth or an inauthentic truth. That doesn't make any sense at all. But if I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, I think he means he wants to believe in something that is true. So I would have dropped the word genuine because that's superfluous in that sentence. If he meant I want truth, then I want truth as well. I like that. I mean, whatever. I like that. It says not the quote, I just believe it kind of truth. If there he means I want to have a kind of faith that's based on truth and not just a blind leap of faith, I cannot concur more. I have the same exact desire. I also want real truth, not just because I have to believe it. I agree. But then he says science keeps piercing the truth of every religion. I have no idea what in the world he's talking about. I have no idea. I just don't know. Science is a methodology of knowledge. Okay, so maybe he means the findings or discoveries of the scientific method demonstrates that religion is false. I don't know, but my response is, okay, demonstrate that. What scientific evidence demonstrates that Jesus did not exist, preached about the kingdom of God, died for our sins, and rose from the dead? What scientific discovery disproves that? What does? I've never heard anything in my entire life, ever, and I've heard and listened to and read many atheists and skeptics. I've never heard any scientific truth that disproved Christianity. Zero. So I don't know. He must know of something I've never heard of. Or, in his worldview or his culture, religion equaled all kinds of things, like evolution is of the devil, and the earth is 6,000 years old, and things like that. Then maybe it chipped away at some of his beliefs. But even if evolution is true, even if Noah didn't, the flood didn't exist, even if none of those things are about Christianity. None of them. I mean, none of them. So then he says, lots of things help people change their lives, not just one version of God. My response is absolutely agree. Yep, that's right. That is true. Lots of things help people change their lives. That's right. You could be a straight, rigorous atheist and go to counseling and your life could be better off. Absolutely agree with that. Absolutely. You could change your lives. You could become a meth addict. You could become a porn star or a gangster. All kinds of things change people's lives. Everything does. Some things change people's lives for the better. My example of therapy or eating healthily and going to the gym. I agree. I do agree. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Christianity can still be true and other things can help people change their lives. I'm not sure what that means. And then he says toward the end, all I know is what's true to me right now. And I appreciate his authenticity there. That is, for me, this, maybe he means seems true. But then he says, and Christianity just seems to me like another religion at this point. And to that I say, I don't know. I don't know what that means. It is another religion. If you go to any kind of school, like I taught at a college in Houston, and I taught world religions, Christianity is a religion of many. I'm not sure what point that means, unless he just means it's just as irrelevant or false or neutral like every other religion. If that's what he means, okay, he's just telling us how he feels or what he thinks. And I appreciate that he's just telling us how he feels and thinks. This last thing, love and forgive absolutely. He meant a comma because it sounds like he's saying forgive absolutely, meaning you should absolutely forgive, but that's not what he means. I think he means keep on loving and forgiving. Be kind, absolutely. Be generous and do good to others, absolutely. Some things are good no matter what you believe. My response to that is, and this is nothing novel. I mean, nothing I'm saying here is novel. All these things are in numerous, countless books and articles you can read. But just in case you want to hear my thoughts, love and forgive absolutely. Be kind, be generous. My response is, just like the author of Skillet, that response when he said, why? That's a very good, fair response. When he says some things are good no matter what you believe, my response is absolutely right. That's right. Some things are good no matter what you believe. That's exact. I completely agree. To use a philosophical terminology, we would call that it's objectively good. So it's an objective good regardless of your personal preferences. Regardless of your personal preferences, it is still true that some things are good and some things are bad. It is good to serve people. It is good to tell the truth and so forth. It is bad to rape. It is bad to pillage and steal and whatever. Now, That's the moral value. The duty is what we do in the moment. Those are two different things. I've got numerous podcasts on that. I hope you go listen to my Search Morality on my podcast if you want. So when he says some things are good no matter what you believe, my response is that's true. That's different from what he said right before it, which is love and forgive, absolutely. Be kind, be generous. Those are moral duties. Those are moral duties. So my response to you is, if you abandon Christianity and the belief in an objective moral God, why is it a moral duty to be loving and forgiving? Why is it a moral duty to be kind? Why is it a moral duty to be generous and do good? Why? Those are commandments. Those are commandments, and commandments require a commander, but if you abandon your commander, then there are no more commandments anymore. So if you still do believe in objective moral values, that some things are good and some things are bad, then you need to answer, as every single atheist and skeptic does, or every moral relativist does, which is, why? Why believe some things are good and some things are bad if there's no objective center that grounds these things? That is irrelevant if you believe in those things. I'm saying if you do believe those things, and he said this, some things are good no matter what you believe. And I'm saying we're on the same page on that one. It's just I have a completely cogent, rational explanation for why some things are good no matter what you believe. He doesn't anymore. He doesn't. Unless he's a Platonist and he thinks, no, goodness just lives out in reality. Like honesty just exists in a Platonic realm. Okay, you can believe that. It's a very minority view, and I find that very unconvincing. I think Platonism is nonsense. Platonism, objective moral floating values in reality don't tell me what to do. They're not moral duties. We experience moral duties because we do. We feel like we ought to do something. Well, why in the world do we feel like we ought to do something? Evolution doesn't make me feel ought. That doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't make any sense. Why does my conscience feel like I ought to do certain things? So that's the biggest problem philosophically at the very end. It really is. And people, atheists, hate what I just said. They'll come, most of them, a lot of them in my experience, will come back and say, that's just silly, David. I can be good too without God. I didn't say you couldn't be good, though I don't think you can be very good. You can be somewhat good without believing in God. That's true. But it is the case that you have no reason to think it is good to be good. We're just evolved chimps. We're just evolved chimps. On your view, if all naturalism is true, if we're just evolved chimps, just very special, nice chimps, and you say it's good to be generous, that's not what you mean when you say it's good. What you mean is it helps the species or something, but it's not good. Just a sort of survival mechanism. So objective moral values don't exist in evolution. It's just a stream of unending social biological adaptations that help us survival. It's just a moving stream. You can't pin it down. So he's already in some philosophical, nonsense waters, but that's what you get when you don't read and you're not prepared to say these kind of things. I don't know. So back to where you started, or something I said early on, rather, when he says the shock and horror of the scientific community, they don't have that. Once a theory is usurped by a new and contradictory theory, there was nothing. Nothing he said is a new and contradictory theory. It's just questions and saying no one talks about it. So here's another sad, common, absurd deal where you leave the faith because you have some questions. And I don't doubt, as I started, it's very emotional and very legit for him. I don't at all. It's just, these are bad reasons, man. These are just bad reasons. Something else, and I've said this on the podcast, I guess I'll wrap up, that's interesting to me. And this has been a struggle for me too, when I've pondered in my life leaving the faith, and I've been through some struggles and so forth, is you're not just having questions, you are saying every single thing I ever thought and experienced is false. So in these songs that he's written, like In Your Freedom and Son of God, There Is Nothing Like, and Depths, and Elohim, Take All of Me, Savior King, Oh Praise the Name, Anastasis, Resurrection, all these songs that talk about him being our God, and you're everything, Jesus, I look to you, and you've changed my life, and you're this, you're phenomenal. It means everything you ever sung was wrong. It means every experience you ever had was delusional. Or it means you never meant it, or you were always lying. I mean, you see what that means? Again, I've said this many times in podcasts. If I said that, about my wife, I'm really single, it would mean every single experience I've ever had with my wife was delusional. And I never was married. When you walk away from marriage, it's different from getting divorced where you say, I can't get along with the person anymore. It's just leaving the house and never coming back, and they say, what happened? You mean, what would happen? Oh, she no longer exists. What do you mean she no longer exists? She doesn't exist. What do you mean she no longer exists? I walked out. I lost my faith in marriage. Well, okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that, but that doesn't mean she doesn't exist anymore. It just means you abandoned her. No. That's my truth right now. That's my truth. That's where I'm at right now. To me, anybody who claims to know anybody, it's all the same. And so, many people have left their marriages, and it's clear their spouses don't exist anymore. I'm going for a long time. The point is, it's more than just losing something. It means everything you sang, all the songs you wrote, all the stuff you experienced, you said, you're delusional. You suffer from a serious psychological disorder, or it means you're a liar. And you never meant it. That's big things. And another big thing would mean is you're also making a decision not because of new evidence that has come up. There's not new evidence Jesus wasn't raised from the dead. It just means you don't want to believe it anymore. And that's a typical response from people when they abandon their faith. It's, my feelings are hurt. I'm sad, so I leave the faith. As I've said a billion times, the proper response to to loss is grief, not quitting Christianity. That's the proper response. So I want to encourage you, if you're listening to this and this resonates to you at all and you have these questions, I really mean this. Please don't give up. Please read books, read articles, do something. Come back. They're really good, smart people who have thought about these issues for centuries, and doing a couple Google searches and all of a sudden you're not happy, it's not a wise decision. It means you really just want out. And if you really want out real fast, no matter what, you got some profound emotional issues going on. And that's why I'm encouraging you, just hold on and do some reading. Please don't make any rash decisions with this. So I'll pray for him and anyone who keeps leaving the faith for these reasons, and any time at all, that they find their way back home. Well, the conversation isn't finished. You can always reach out to me on social media. Are you on Facebook? I am too. @Glimpse of the Kingdom. Glimpse of the Kingdom on Facebook. Be sure to like it and you can see updates there. Also, if you're on Twitter, check me out at Dr. D. Pendergrass, Dr. D. Pendergrass, or @Glimpse the King, @Glimpse the King. And I try my best to respond to comments and questions on there as quickly as I can. If you want more, there are many more resources on the podcast and my blog. Go to my website, davidpendergrass.com, and you can see a full list of the podcast, and my blog is available for free. Are you active in a church right now? I'd be happy to come out to your church and do all kinds of classes and workshops there. Check out davidpendergrass.com, davidpendergrass.com for more information. And may God in His great grace give you even just a glimpse of His kingdom this week. See you next time.